Candace, you've got it. You're different.
Hi Dee, how you doing?
You got a different background, Candace. Or different.
Yeah, I'm hiding out where it is quieter at my in-laws. These COVID meetings are becoming more challenging as my son gets older.
He can find you.
Well, he has more of his own mind now. He's like, I don't want to stay in my room.
They get really mobile. Okay, let's see. I think we've got a quorum. It's 5 o'clock, so I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. One moment while I get a appropriate virtual background. There we go.
Wow.
Okay, we'll start out with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Let me switch back to, oh no. There we go. To my Hope for Rain background. Eva, can I have a director's roll call, please?
Sure. Vice Chair McFadden,
Here.
Director Kimball,
Here.
Director Minigan,
Yeah.
Director Pace,
Here.
Director Villaseñor.
Here.
Perfect.
Okay, very good. We'll go on to item 1C, public comments. Are there any members of the public here who would like to make a comment? Before we do that, let's see, I guess I'll watch, but I see that Lisa is on. We could have Lisa or Eva kind of monitor that. There you are. Out in Arizona, looks like.
Sacramento State's background.
That's a good one. Good xeriscape. Okay, I don't see any public comment. Lisa, do you see anything out there? Very good. We'll go on to item 1B, approval of the agenda. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion, but was that Christina? Okay,
Yes.
is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, let's see. Eva, I forget, do we need a roll call for that?
Okay, yes.
Okay, roll call vote,
Okay.
please.
Vice Chair McFadden,
Aye.
Director Kimball,
Aye.
Director Minigan,
Aye.
Director Pace,
Aye.
Director Villaseñor.
Aye.
Perfect.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously. We'll go on to updates. Item 2A. Anything from the Fillmore pumpers?
Our board was dark this month. We do have tentatively scheduled a members meeting on September 2nd. We were going to do it in person, but I think it's moving towards doing it by Zoom because of the resurging COVID. And we may actually move it a week later. So we're trying to get it to where we can at least have Brian do a review or read through the Fillmore GSP so we can discuss that and maybe even hopefully have the Pyru GSP released so that that's available. But we were hoping to do it before our GSA board meeting in September so that members could also comment at that meeting. So that's all I have.
Okay, Glenn, anything from Pyru?
Nothing additional. It's kind of a ditto to Fillmore. We're in the same situation, and hopefully by our next meeting, we'll have more to report.
Okay, thank you. Candace, from the environmental side?
Just to reiterate that all the environmental representatives have been invited to provide feedback to the Santa Clara River Steelhead Coalition on September 9th. And so I'll be updating environmental stakeholders on the process and, the draft GSP being out and any concerns and getting feedback from those stakeholders so that they can also comment at the upcoming workshop, the September meeting. And then I am going to share with Ava to share with the board 2 letters. The Environmental Law Foundation provided a letter through, and they are stressing the importance of GSAs considering public trust resources adequately in their GSPs. So I think that's just a general letter that we should be aware of, that is a concern within the environmental community in the state as GSPs are being drafted. And then I'm sure some folks have already seen it, but Department of Fish and Wildlife also provided comments on the Mound Basin's GSP. And I think that will also be helpful in just identifying some of the concerns that California Department of Fish and Wildlife might have on the watershed that might be pertinent to our basin as well. Obviously, Mound and Fillmore and Piru are different, but there are also similarities. So I think I'll be sharing those 2 letters for background, especially for Tony Emmert and Tony Morgan's consideration.
Thank you.
Anything else, Candace?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Christina, City of Fillmore.
No particular update from the city of Fillmore. I did share that the GSP draft was to be released. It is at the Fillmore Library, and I made that announcement at our city council meeting. The city will also, I don't know if they have yet, I will double check with the city manager that they posted it on City of Fillmore social media with a link to the draft plans. Make sure that happens. And the council will be meeting once a month to the end of the year, unless there is a particular business that we need to meet for the 4th Tuesday. But it'll be the 2nd Tuesday monthly. That's it.
Okay, thanks for the update. From United, I don't have anything new, but I will, as long as I've got the microphone, I'll tell you that my wife and I are expecting the birth of our first grandchild next Tuesday. So we're quite excited. We're quite excited about that.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
Granddaughter is on the way, and she's
Wow, that's
she's on the calendar. So I apologize for missing the last meeting. Unfortunately, I was in the hospital with my mother, but got her released, and she's doing much better. She took a fall early in the morning before the meeting, and I spent the day in Orange County in the hospital, but all worked out well. So little off the subject from United Water, but that's all I have to report. And Kelly's busy with family matters, exciting, good family matters. So we'll move on to item 2B, the Executive Director update.
Good evening, board. I actually have a few things. I'll try to keep this going since our acting chair tonight is attempting to set a world speed record for this meeting. Groundwater Sustainability Planning Grant. We just recently, last week, submitted Progress Report 9 and Invoice 9. Over the last month or so, we've developed a month by month cash flow projection, and we've been working with our grant manager. I don't know if he's on the meeting tonight, but he's been very helpful. And it's looking like we may be able to do a short time extension, especially for the monitoring wells component. And as you're aware, we had some concern over cash flow if we had to finish the monitoring wells and have them all invoiced by December 31st. So it's looking like we could be constructing monitoring wells in very, very early 2022 with just the grant manager's approval. And that would afford us additional time to to have receivables of groundwater charges and be able to pay that. So I'll share a little bit more on that as it goes along, but encouraging news along that front. Groundwater model, the validation, documentation, comments have been received from the expert panel, and staff at United are working to address those comments and finish a technical memo on that by the end of the month. And then shortly thereafter, we expect a final memo from the expert panel on the groundwater model. So that's working very well. Billing receivables and collections, groundwater invoices for the period that ended June 30th should be going out in September. So all the data's in. United's tracking down those that have been late to report, and then we should have all the information to send out the billing. We have a receivables balance of just around a little under 80,000, which is a bit concerning, but there are a couple pumpers, as we've talked about before, that haven't contributed at all. And so we are likely going to be suggesting some, at least the things that we can do short of legal action on that. So we'll be working with legal counsel on that. And United has taken action on a couple of them. It happened to be problems for this agency too. So we'll try to make sure that the two agencies work together on that one. Projects and programs development, I know it was something we talked about last time, and I think I had said that we are going to be lifting a heavy load to try to get through our GSPs, respond to comments, but the point is a good one, and so we'll be developing a little bit more of a schedule on projects fleshing out, and ideally we would start that in January. So we're scheduled to adopt our GSPs, I believe, at the December 16th meeting. So immediately after that, we can pivot and start working on some of the things that we want to flesh out. And ideally, we could flesh those out, develop scopes, schedules, and budgets, and then those could be dropped into the budget for the 22-23 fiscal year. So we're working on we'll be working on fleshing that out a little bit more and bring some of that back. Amazingly enough, we will have our first annual report due in April 2022. So looking forward to that. It's my recommendation that we get a scope and fee estimate from our Daniel B. Stevens team, because they will be the ones that are working on our plan. So unless there's some concern that you have with that, I'll be working with the Daniel B. Stevens team to bring something to you. And then as soon as their keyboards cool off from preparing and submitting the plan, then it'll be time to work on the first annual update for the agency for both of the basins. So that'll be January, February, March type work, and those are due in June. One thing I was hoping to get a little bit more on the agenda, but just ran out of runway on that. But I'll provide a little bit of a verbal update. So we've been reviewing and communicating with the County of Ventura regarding the county's well permitting requirements, and in particular the 2014, there were 2014 and 16 changes to the code regarding wells, and 2014 one was the, we call it the moratorium. It's not actually titled that, but in many parts of the county, including these two basins, there was a prohibition of new well construction. So there are some exceptions to replace existing wells, essentially if it's an existing use. And if you have an existing well, then there's an allowance for construction of a backup well, as long as the usage doesn't change. And then all other all other well construction was prohibited. And so we've seen a couple of those come through, I believe 3 or 4, where somebody was replacing a well or otherwise similar water use to the past that this board has considered. And that in closer examination of that ordinance, it does essentially say that exception for a GSA. So there is an exception for GSAs who have submitted their GSP. So it doesn't say submitted their GSP and got 2 thumbs up from DWR. It says submitted the GSP. So essentially, as soon as we submit our GSP, which is scheduled for sometime in January 2022, then that exception applies. And those that have been maybe perhaps patiently waiting to drill a well for something other than existing uses would be able to do so. So in talking with county staff, they're hoping to say when somebody calls them, they direct them to talk to us first. And so, so we would be sort of the keepers of that part of it. And I think, you know, as we've talked about before, you know, we still are in a drought. And so staff will be working to develop some things for board consideration before that time. So by the January timeframe. And in the meantime, I think every one of those requests would have to come to the board. I think we can foresee something like a de minimis, de minimis changes. Like if somebody comes in and says, I have my small domestic well on a rural property and, you know, I'm constructing another one next to it. I think the agency would rather have staff be able to look at that and have the board's blessing to just approve those kinds of small things if they're a replacement or a like for like. But if somebody's coming in and you know, says I've cleared 500 acres on the top of the hill in the Piru area, perhaps the board wants to think about that. We have a little bit of expansion of use built into our GSPs, but that's over 20 years, and you know, it's possible that that something could come in. So we'll work to flesh that out and bring that back to your board. I apologize for not having something to start on tonight, but we've had a lot of other things going on. So that's all I have for this afternoon's approval. Hopefully that was quick enough.
Tony, we're kidding about it. I looked at my calendar. We've been working on this for 4 years, and it's too important to rush. We just need to be efficient. Do you need more formal board direction as far as the future reporting from Daniel B. Stevens, as far as having them do it?
I don't really. I think under this, with the update, I'm not sure if legal counsel will allow us to have much of a board opinion on this or much, but I just wanted to update you on what we have going. And I wasn't seeing any angry faces to any of the things that I said. So I'll just take that as I'm going to proceed and bring some of these back to you at the earliest possible time.
Okay, you had 6 of 6 or 5 of 6 smiley faces, so I think that passes. Okay, anything else, Tony?
Nothing else.
All right, we'll move on to item 2C, legal counsel update. Scott?
Yeah, good evening all. It's nice to see you again. I actually don't have anything to report tonight, but if there are any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Okay, any questions from the board for legal counsel? Okay, very good. Let's go on to item 2D. Tony Morgan, you're on.
All right, evening, everybody. You all had the pleasure of having a pile of paper added to your reading list for the Fillmore Basin draft public review version of the GSP. So hopefully you're having some time to wander your way through the document and understand what's going on there. There's a lot of information compressed in those 200 and something odd pages there. And if that isn't enough to keep you preoccupied, there's another almost 2,100 pages of technical appendices that are available through the agency's website. So if there's something there you want a little more detail on, check out the appendices. Chances are it's probably in there somewhere. So that was delivered out to United on the 6th of August. Tomorrow is the 20th. United will be getting the digital files for the Piru Basin for uploading as well. And the tentative plan right now from the printer is to have the copies back, hard copies back for your review on Monday morning. So we'll get those over to United for distribution. And so you'll have the opportunity to wander through that. It's another 230-ish pages of reading material. Much of the language, the tone, the organization is identical to the Fillmore. So if you've read through the Fillmore one, you'll see a lot of the same threads, a lot of the same type language in the Piru Basin as well. And so I should expect that the review time for the Piru Basin might be less than the Fillmore Basin, assuming you started with the Fillmore one first. So there's something like 2,544 pages of information between the two GSPs and the technical appendix. So remember, the technical appendices are only produced once because a lot of them covered both basins. And so there's one set of technical appendices that will be added to both of the draft GSPs for submittal to DWR ultimately. So that's 2,500 pages roughly in the consulting game in the world I'm in. These things are priced at about $1,000 a page. So that's a $2.5 million effort that you're looking at there. So anyway, more reading material coming for you in the next day or few days anyway on the Piru Basin. I think that's all from my end, unless you guys have some particular questions.
Tony,
No
I had a
question.
question. So with regards to the technical appendices, they're identical on both the GSPs, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And there are hard copies of those appendices in both of the libraries in Fillmore and Piru. Tony Emmert has a full copy, and then I have a full copy as well.
Okay, thank you.
I had to put an extra couple of 2x4s under the end of the table in my office when I piled them up on the end, but they're there.
All right, well, I'd just like to say a very big thank you to Daniel B. Stevens and the whole team, really. It was quite momentous when I went to go and collect my draft plan from Director Pitts' office. We've been doing so many of these meetings. I was like, here it is. I am very excited to slowly but surely be getting through the draft plan and providing comment on that. So thank you.
No problem. Looking forward to seeing comments from everybody.
Yes, ditto on that. Can you refresh my memory as to the comment submittal from the directors? I know we talked about the last meeting, but just wanted to make sure that you want it to be what did we say? Emailed directly by section. I think that was it. Or I think that was stakeholder comments, but was director comments any different from the stakeholder comments?
Lisa, could I ask you to jump in here for a moment? I think the form that we have set up for recording comments could work equally well for stakeholders or directors.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
It can, and actually that's a good question. I'm glad you asked it because I was wondering that as well.
Okay.
We definitely could use the same method for submitting them, but I think it would be good to have some discussion in terms of how we want to respond to those. If we want to have any differentiation between comments received from board directors versus the public. But there's a link on the website. If you go to Groundwater Sustainability Plan, and then under there, you go to public review and comments on the draft GSPs. If you open up that page, it gives you a little background at first about the public review periods, how to submit comments. You could do online, you could submit a letter. And if you scroll down, there's the actual online comment form. You can enter your comments in there.
Thank you.
Trying to give
Smart
people
too, as
multiple
we
options.
talk. It looks simple. It looks good. Comment for two
Eva worked
Tonys,
hard on that. I want to give Eva a little, some recognition for helping to get that online,
Thank
the
you.
website set up.
Very handy having written copies. Tony Emmert, Tony Morgan found it useful as I was reading through to separate out the figure section and kind of have it side by side. If with a digital copy, I would have had a much harder time doing that. So
That's the multiple screens I have across my desk, and the photo figures are over here and the text is over here, and I'm flipping back and forth. It's sometimes old school is easier.
yeah, paper is good sometimes. Okay, anything else?
That's it for
Tony,
me. That's it
Morgan?
for me.
All right, let's move on to item 3, consent calendar. I'd entertain a motion to approve these as a block, or if someone needs something separated out, we can consider it separately.
So moved.
Okay, Director Kimball has made a motion to accept the consent calendar. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second that.
I know that, I think that was Christina. Okay, I was very close there. All right, we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please, Eva?
Sure. Vice Chair McFadden,
Aye.
Director Kimball,
Aye.
Director Minigan,
Aye.
Director Pace,
Aye.
Director Villaseñor.
Aye.
Perfect.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Let's go on to our motion items. Item number 4A. Tony Emmert, will you be presenting this, or how will we move forward?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
And I apologize for not having a nice PowerPoint. I think we may end up being 0 PowerPoint tonight in the whole meeting. But essentially, the assignment we had was to review the state's executive orders regarding public meeting law. So the famous Brown Act and also the Bagley-Keene Act. And in March 2020, the governor adopted Executive Order N25-20, and that suspended several of the provisions, and then followed that a little bit later, March 17th, with Executive Order N2920, which also it suspended the portion that required all the board members to be within the jurisdiction, and so it basically facilitated the Zoom type meeting format that we have now. So previously a majority of the directors had to be within the jurisdiction of the agency, and then any of you who have ever tried to be part of a public meeting in a different place, I've had ones before where a board member was in Cleveland, Ohio, in a hotel room and had to post the agenda and welcome in any visitors who might come to witness the public meeting. So that's fairly restrictive. And this executive order, because of the COVID-19 public health crisis, suspended much of that. And in June, as our governor was executing his California is opening again, instituted or basically said on September 29th, or September 30th, 2021, that portion of those executive orders expire. So we go back to the regular rules of meeting in public, meeting together. And if somebody's separate, they still could do telephonically, but it has to go back to the old rules of posting the agenda and making a visitor welcome. So essentially, we will be meeting, unless, of course, the governor changes his mind or we have a different governor or something else happens. We do have a recall election that's out there. So at this point, let's assume we have the same governor, and the end of this order N 2920 occurs on September 30th, then we will be meeting in person again at the City of Fillmore City Hall for our October meeting. And talking to City of Fillmore IT staff and clerk staff, the city does not currently have the capability to do a hybrid meeting. So, right now we've been doing all virtual, and then we'll all be in person, or most of us will be in person. And the hybrid meetings are actually the most difficult to do with an IT respect, because you have both the video and the audio, and you have to set up your room with the right speakers and the controls on that to avoid feedback. And believe me, when we first started trying to do this at United, we had some challenges with that. So I think our assumption is we will be back to meeting in person. The city has said they would consider having an IT person help us to use more of the equipment. If you recall, before we sort of hauled all of our equipment in and set it up and then packed it up afterwards and took it out, but we were not attempting to do hybrid meetings. I think the board has expressed a desire to try to do the hybrid meeting. So I have asked, so we really have two options. One is we could work with the City of Fillmore IT staff and perhaps see if we could equip the city council chambers with the equipment to be able to do that. And the other would be if United's IT staff could set us up with a portable system that ideally would probably be self-contained. And so the word that I have back on that is, yes, actually a system like that could be done. I wasn't even sure if we could have a portable system like that, but our IT guy has found, amazingly enough, it's the people who do concerts these days, and that's all they do is set up in an unusual venue, and they pack everything up afterwards. So they are putting a quotation together for us, and the challenge may be the timeline, because as you know, the whole supply chain worldwide is held up with circuit boards and that type of thing. So I think it's safe to assume, unless the governor's order is amended, then we will be meeting in person, and we will really not have the option of having somebody in a different location interacting as we have recently. So if Steve Slack from CDFW wants to come, he would have to be there in person. And we will get something like this together. I haven't had a chance to talk to my boss. Unfortunately, he's been quite ill the last week. I have it on my list to speak with him to see if this is something that United would want to invest in, and we could just provide that as a service to the Fillmore and Piru Basin GSA. But they're somewhere in the range of $20,000 worth of equipment. So it would be wireless microphones, mixer, computer, projector, all the stuff tied together so that we could make sure it all worked. So I don't have a completed option for you, but we're working pretty hard on trying to find that. But I think the safe assumption is for our October meeting, we may have to be old school, physically in person, and those that want to participate would have to be here. The city can offer the recording of the meeting, so you would lose the interaction during the meeting, but somebody remotely, I think we do have property owners and others who participate from pretty far away, so they could view the meeting at another time, and we could make that available on the website like we've done for some presentations. We have a few older presentations that are on our website, so we can make that available. And the city does have the availability for people that are local to watch live via the cable channel, I believe. But that would also probably be difficult to do from outside of the direct vicinity. So that's sort of what we have at this point. And I think we would just leave it up to, if there's any discussion or direction, if I think it would probably be better on the purchasing of equipment. If the agency wants to go with the self-contained method, I think it would be better if United's IT staff set that up and we just bring it. And so, it's like you rent some equipment with an operator and they're responsible for making sure it works for you. Because I'm not sure if Eva and I want to be the on-the-spot IT people that are trying to figure out if something's going wrong with the system. And then our option with the city of Fillmore would be if Fillmore's willing to do that, we would probably have to pay for that kind of an upgrade that they don't necessarily have in their budget. And then we would probably have to pay for somebody to be there that would help us with that. Because I think if it's their equipment, they're going to want to run it. And that makes every bit of sense. So that's as much as I have on this at this point. I know we've had, we have probably 20 people that are participating in the meeting, and some aren't in the, it would be difficult to be in the room, but it looks like that may be what we have to do until we can get another system set up.
Tony, I guess a comment I would have is it's pretty steep price. And I would be the way the Delta variant is disrupting many communities now, I'd be surprised if there wasn't some sort of an extension beyond October 1st, but we'll see.
Vice Chair McFadden, I would guess that if there was not a recall election going on, that we probably would have already seen that. But I think it would be a politically bad move for the governor right now to start making things a lot more restrictive until after the election. But that's about 2 weeks away or so, or
September 14th is the election.
Yeah. So unless you have different direction, we'll continue pursuing both of these. And I think there's a reasonable chance that we may get an extension of that. I don't see Director Villasenor, is the city meeting in person at this point?
Yes, the city is meeting in person, but that's what was discussed at the last meeting and why we've going to one meeting a month. And I think we're just sort of waiting as well, to see if we may go back to online. But at this point, our September meeting was scheduled to be in person.
Well, fortunately for us, Ventura County it has a pretty high percentage of vaccinated folks. So the risk to all those that are vaccinated is lower, but there are people in all of our communities that are not yet vaccinated. So we have to be considerate of that, and we'll do what we can do to try to be ready for October, but it may be a little bit later than that.
If we're doing in-person meetings, is there going to be guidelines, restrictions, masks, separation? I mean, how's that going to be controlled if we're doing this in-person meeting?
I think that, Director Pace, I think that we would follow whatever is the current guidance of our county health director. And those, the in-person meetings are being allowed at this point. but a lot of that was rolled out with the sort of June, July reopening. And I'm not sure if the resurgence to this Delta variant was taken into consideration. So we were talking about that this morning at United because we had a meeting scheduled for sort of an all staff meeting. We had a guest speaker and we decided to just leave everybody at their locations and do it virtually. But you know, in talking to our HR director, there really are no restrictions on our size of meeting at this point in the county of Ventura, but it's fluid and that might change.
It would, in some ways, it'd be nice if it does get extended so that at least until we approve the GSP, we can provide access for everybody that's been involved and been participating. Going forward, we'll see how it works out, but I sort of view the hybrid as an effort at stakeholder outreach and involvement. It's an enhancement in our stakeholders' ability to participate in the process. And it is the participation, not just watching, but it's the ability to make comments real time and that has been really valuable, even if we haven't been able to interact with them face to face, which I really miss. But I can see those public agencies that are really concerned developing the technology to be hybrid, and I can see maybe even eventually where it's a requirement, a legal requirement that all the cities and all governments provide that, because it is so valuable. That is, if you can manage the interaction, it doesn't overwhelm the meeting. So if we can't, if there are meetings that we can't, and until we can get the technology, it's unfortunate, but I would hope that long-term we can find a cost-effective way to do it. And logically, it would be that the facility, that the city of Fillmore puts in the technology, and whether we could contribute to that or just pay usage fees so that we contribute it, rather than hauling it around, unless United has multiple meetings that they could use it. To me, it would make sense if the equipment was in place, and that puts it on the city of Fillmore. But if I'm sure we could find a way to participate either by charges or another way, so that it's there and it happens and it doesn't put burden on our staff. So it's something to think about, and something I'm sure will come up at city council as things move forward. $20,000 for just us meeting seems a big investment, and that technology may come down as there are more and more people trying to do this. Companies set up or Zoom establishes equipment or facilities to do it. So
I was just gonna echo what Gordon was saying. I think, the board had said we prefer a hybrid model. And if there is a way to cost share with the city to have the infrastructure in place, I'd be supportive of something like that. I don't know if there are other agencies or groups using the city facility that we could, all do a bit of a cost share to make that doable. But I think that seems to be the best solution, to have the facility upgraded rather than something that gets lugged around and can also get outdated.
No, I agree with all the director's comments. And I know the city has been, we've been having discussions about it with the city manager, and to looking for how we can have this in the city. I also know that in terms of bringing on other other organizations, agencies, and partners to share the cost. That we've been in talks with Fillmore Unified School District for them to actually start using council chambers for their board meetings and having like a cost sharing of the IT. So, you know, between these three agencies and potentially one or more, that would be, you know, that would be a good way to go. So I'll communicate that. Thank you.
Well, that's very helpful. So we will, I didn't really know as of last meeting if, you know, what the preference of the board is. And I agree that it probably the least beneficial would be for this agency to buy its own equipment. That doesn't seem to make sense. So if the city's considering that, I can have United's IT folks that have had to struggle with this the last year and retrofit the rooms. There have been some lessons learned on, honestly, the audio is the most difficult part, is dealing with the, we had somebody who was a computer expert and not an audio visual expert, and had to learn some very hard lessons on feedback and other things. But I think we have some good experience we could share. So we'll reach out to City of Fillmore staff again after receiving this feedback from the board, and then we'll also pursue getting a proposal on the mobile equipment, because I think United's also entering a phase that we're going to have more public outreach. And getting you know, more neighborhood type meetings and things in the future. And so that also may be something that United wants to invest in, but I can report back on that one later. So thank you for the feedback on this. And I think we know what the board would prefer, and we'll work to develop that further.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Maybe there might even be a situation where United had the equipment and they could rent it out, just so we wouldn't have to invest in that. But I do agree that having that flexibility for that type of hybrid meeting is valuable. Just that the number that you came up with scares me a bit.
Yes.
Okay, if we're done with 4A, we'll move on to future topics for board discussion. Are there any?
Oh, I see Lisa's hand.
Hi, Lisa.
Oh, hi.
Sorry, I didn't see your hand up.
No worries. I was wondering if it's okay if I bring up a question kind of on a related subject. We have 2 stakeholder workshops planned, and when we last discussed them, there was a desire to have one of them be in person. So currently there's one planned for September 17th in the morning at Fillmore City Hall, and the second one on September 23rd online as part of the board meeting. And I just wanted to see if it would be worth revisiting that. You know, Director Kimball mentioned kind of a pulling back of the desire to have in person. So I just wanted to check in before we send out the flyer and notice on whether you guys still want that first stakeholder workshop to be in person, given what's happening with the virus and all.
It seems like we would be, we should be guided by county and state, whatever the county and state guidelines are at the time. And unfortunately, it's hard to plan if the situation is fluid. So I'm not sure what the answer is. We could leave it and then cancel a week ahead of time if suddenly the Delta variant is causing huge problems.
Well, I think we had one at 10 a.m. and one at 5 p.m. also. So we had different time frames for different people. So if we wanted to be conservative, we could go to both online, hold the times and not have to cancel. We would miss the in-person, but we would be playing it safest. If we had to choose one and not have to adjust it, I would say we switch to online and do them both at the different times and see if we capture different audiences. That would be my recommendation.
Sounds good.
I agree.
That's,
That would be
that's
the
great.
safest.
Sounds good.
There are communities that I'm familiar with now that are being much more impacted by the Delta variant than they were by the original COVID last year. So that's a concern. Fillmore seems to be doing okay, but I agree with Glenn's approach. So
So
do we want to set that? Do we want to just say that that's the way we'll move forward unless something dramatic changes in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah,
This is,
I'm good with that.
it's not an agenda item. I think Scott will tell us we can't have a vote, but I think we can nod our heads and smile.
You can give direction to staff.
Okay. Shall we give that direction to staff? As by shows, nodding heads, thumbs up and smiles.
Okay, and just to make sure I understood, we're going to keep the current schedule on time, but instead of having the first meeting in person, we're going to have that online as well. Great. Thank you.
Yes, that's what the board is giving staff direction to pursue.
Thanks, just wanted to confirm.
Can you say those dates again? Just so that,
Sure, yes. The first date is September 17th, and we had scheduled that for 10 a.m. to noon. And the second date is September 23rd, and that's at 5 p.m. And that one was going to be a rescheduled board meeting from when it would normally be held the week before. It was going to be the first agenda item of a board meeting.
So we're
Thank you.
changing the normal board time of 16th to the 23rd. Or the date, I should say. Sounds good. Anything else, Lisa? Okay,
No, thank you so much.
thank you. Okay, thanks for keeping us straight there. Okay, how about future topics for board discussion? Our plate's pretty full. We don't need to drag in a bunch of all new stuff right now.
Agreed.
Okay, very good. Then unless there are any further items, I'm looking at everybody's faces before I bang the gavel if I have one. I will adjourn the meeting at 5:57. Thank you all for coming and participating.
Ed, one correction on the notes or the agenda here. It says the next board meeting will be the 16th.
Right.
Oh, good catch, Glenn.
That is the 23rd, correct?
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
So just might be worth noting that.
Thank you. I probably would have shown up at both. So thank you.
All
Okay,
right,
with
thank you,
that,
everybody.
we're already adjourned, so we're just having social interaction now, I think.
All right. Good night, all. Thank you.
And
Night.
Candace,
Good night, everyone.
Everybody.
Candace, I had
Ava,
I
can
had
you
my
hang on a second?
DPAP immunization, Candace, so I'm covered for contact with parents of all infants.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's gonna be an exciting time, Ed.
Yes, it will be.
Yeah. Congratulations again.
All right, thank you very much.
All right,
All right,
bye-bye.
good night, all.
Good night.
Good night. So Ava,
Awesome.
I need to drop off the flash drive with the Pyru stuff on. Are you in the office tomorrow? Or is it your
I'm
day off?
not, I'm not,
Okay.
but I could probably have, if it needs to be done tomorrow,
No,
either,
I don't think, I mean, it's just like last time. I don't think it needs to be done tomorrow.
Okay.
And it's not a whole bunch of files this time.
okay.
It's much smaller.
You know what? I prepped already what took me a long time to do.
Mhm.
On the website, all I have to do is, drop them each at a time and name them.
Got
The hardest part I already have ready.
Okay.
So when I come in on Monday, if that's okay, I can, drop them all in and name them.
it. Okay. All right. That'll work.
Yeah.
That'll be fine. That'll be
Okay,
fine. I think
okay,
that works.
Just wanted to make sure.
Okay,
Okay, sounds great. I'll make sure
Bye-bye.
the girls know up front that you're going to be dropping those off.
okay.
Is it going to
If
be
you-
one or two?
There's
Just one, right?
There's one flash drive is all it's gonna have to be dropped off.
Okay, the other one was because you had to divide it, right?
Yeah, that's why there were so many files on there. 'Cause
Right.
We had to divide things up, but this will be simpler because we're not doing the appendices over again.
Okay, okay,
So it'll
fair
be
enough.
a much smaller file.
Okay, sounds
Okay.
good.
All right.
All right,
thank you
have a
for-
great weekend.
You too. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.